Today is the first day that we're getting into the coordinate plane. Before we get into a coordinate plane, there's a lot of vocab that you need to get familiar with so that you know what we're referring to. The first vocab word is the coordinate plane. We'll see in a moment that a coordinate plane is made of two number lines. It's going to have an x-axis and a y-axis. When we're referring to the axis or axi, we're actually just referring to the number lines. So when you see the x-axis, you can say that's the x number line. And when you see the y-axis, you can say that that's the y number line. We discussed the origin in yesterday's lesson. But when you're referring to the origin on a coordinate plane, you're thinking about the starting point. The origin on a coordinate plane is the position 0, 0. That means it has an x coordinate of 0, and it also has a y coordinate of 0. When we're looking for our x coordinate, that means we'll be looking at our x-axis. The x coordinate moves horizontally. Horizontally is a fancy word for side to side. When we're looking for our y coordinate, we're going to be moving vertically. That's just a fancy word for up and down. And when we're looking for a coordinate pair, or you might see someone refer this as an ordered pair, that's how you're going to name the location of an object or a dot, or in this lesson will be different shapes. You would see an ordered pair as parentheses x, comma, y, parentheses. And what we'll see in a moment is that when you look for your x coordinate, again, you're going horizontally. When you look at your y coordinate, you're going vertically. I like to draw these arrows whenever I write a coordinate pair just to remind myself that x always comes before y, just like in the alphabet. X goes horizontally and y goes vertically. Now that we're familiar with some vocab, let's actually try a few examples. In front of me, I see a coordinate plane. Again, notice how there are two number lines on the coordinate plane. There's your x-axis or your x number line, which goes horizontally, and there's your y number line, or you can call it your y-axis, that goes vertically. Before we even get started with trying to locate some of these shapes, it's super important that we're labeling these number lines, just like we did in yesterday's video. So when I'm looking at the x-axis, I see that we're starting at 0. I see 1 is over here. I need to think, what number goes right in between 0 and 1? And that would be 1/2. So I now know the unit for this number lines are halves, and I'm quickly going to fill that information in. 0, 1/2, 1, 1 and 1/2, 2, 2 and 1/2, 3, 3 and 1/2, 4, 4 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2, 6. And just like I did for the x-axis, I'm going to do this again for the y-axis. Okay, and let's start with this first example. For this first example, it's asking me to name the coordinates of each shape. Right now, I'm looking for the moon. I see that the moon is located right at this point. To find the coordinates, again, I need to start with first the x coordinate, which is going to move side to side, and then the y coordinate, which is going to move up and down. To get to the moon, we needed to go right to 2.5. So I know the x coordinate for the moon is 2.5. We then needed to go up and stop right at 4. So I know the y coordinate is 4. That means the coordinates of the moon are 2.5, 4. You're always going to move on the x-axis first, which means you're moving side to side, and then you're going to look for the y-coordinate, which is going to go up or down. Let's try another example. This time, we're looking for the sun. Let's go ahead and look for the sun. I'm noticing that the sun is right at this point. Take a moment to look at the x-axis first. What number is the sun at on the x-axis? The sun goes all the way up to the number 4 on the x-axis. Then I needed to go up to the number 3 on the x-axis. So the coordinates for the sun are at 4, 3. And notice when I'm writing my answer, I'm always making sure that they're in parentheses and there's a comma in between the x coordinate and the y coordinate. Let's skip down to example C. Plot an x at 2, 3. I'm going to write a little note and annotate that x always goes first and then y. So when they're looking for the spots of 2, 3, that means on the x line or the x-axis, we need to go to 2. So I'm going to go over to 2. And then we need to go up to 3. The coordinates 2, 3 are right here, and I can label that with an X. In this lesson, we learned about the different vocab for a coordinate plane. We also got to see a coordinate plane. We now know that to find a shape or the coordinates of a shape, we're first going to look along the x-axis and then the y-axis. Our x-axis moves horizontally while our y-axis moves vertically. We need to make sure we know our units for the coordinate plane before we start plotting or identifying the location of our objects.